So, 87, you're the
Flying Color.
Flying Colors split.
Yeah, in 87 we had, we were preparing to do our second album because Grifter wanted a second album. And the arrangement we had with Tom Allen was that we would give him demos, cassette demos of our songs individually or collectively. If Richard and I wrote a song together, we give him that. Or if I wrote a song by myself, I give him that. And Dale, and et cetera, et cetera. And then he would pick the songs for the record, you know. On the first album, he picked 3 of mine only. And he picked, I think, 5 of Dale's and 3 of Richard, even though I sing all the Richard songs because he didn't want to sing. He goes, "You sing them." I said, "All right, I'll sing them, no problem." And then on the second album, Tom wanted 9 of my songs, 1 of Dale's, and then by then Richard was gone, and we had Chris Von Schneider in the band, and 1 of Chris's, and Dale just lost it. I mean, he didn't communicate honestly that he was unsatisfied. He just became very difficult to work with. You know, he just made it really hard to work with because he didn't want to come across as an asshole, I guess, you know. And it just got really frustrating for me because, first of all, I didn't make that decision, so don't get mad at me or don't complicate matters for the band because I didn't make that decision. And then finally I thought, well, I don't want to have a band, be in a band that's going to be problematic like that. I mean, we should just stick to the plan. We have to trust Tom's decision and go with it, you know. And so that didn't that wasn't happening. It was falling apart slowly. I even called Lisa Fancher at Frontier and I said, "Hey, I'm thinking of quitting the band because this is happening, you know." And she goes, "No," it says, "when you kick him out." I said, "I don't kick people out of my bands, you know. I'm not going to kick out Dale, you know. I just don't. I think I'm just going to leave the band." He goes, "Well, if you leave the band, there won't be a second Flying Color album coming out on Frontier." That's what he told me. And I said, "Oh, my God, you know." But I left the band anyways, and I never told those guys. So I think they did get another bass player. They did try for a year. They did record with Tom again. But it wasn't what it was before, and then nothing ever came of it. And I ended up jumping into MCM and The Monster, which was a band that I sort of started during Flying Color era. And MCM and The Monster was this rap rock band that was, imagine AC/DC with one of the Beastie Boys. Yeah, it was a live band. We had a scratcher, and we had Miles. MCM, Mike Controller, Miles. I think was
that just to try something different?
I've always been very open-minded about, you know, like not getting stuck in one genre of music. That's why I've had these different projects. And Miles and I were roommates on Webster Street in San Francisco. And Miles was really into the Beastie Boys and what was popular at the time, Public Enemy. The very beginning of rap was basically those bands. And Miles was going to San Francisco State. He was learning English literature. He was studying English literature, modern poetry, and he was applying all the stuff to his lyrics in his raps, you know. And so when Flying Color was still together, there was a club that we used to play called the VIS Club. It was sort of like it was on Fillmore Street. It was basically a club catering to the black neighborhood. I mean, it was something out of a Shaft movie, man. It was a crazy place in there. It had giant red patent leather booths, you know, with these giant backs and mirrors everywhere, and the bar was oval shaped and right in the middle of the space. It was really cool. And we used to play there. A lot of bands used to play there. And they were closing, and the woman that used to run it, Anita, said, "Hey, you know, I would love for Flying Color to do the going away party. Would you do it?" I said, "Yeah, of course, you know, we'll do it." And then Miles, my roommate, was like, "Hey, you think I could get up there and do a couple of raps?" And I said, "Yeah, man, you know, it's a party. You want to do that? Let's do it." And then my other roommate, Craig, wanted to get up and do like Pushing Too Hard or something. So we just turned into a big fest for everybody, you know. And then Gary was our other roommate. He was a guitar player, and he wanted to get up there and play guitar. So we were like, all right, this is going to turn into this talent show thingy. Let's just go for it. And so we planned it actually with Miles and Gary to get up at the same time. And we just kind of, Miles said, just start a beat and, just sort of jam on this, whatever. And we did, and he started rapping, and then people ate it up because rap was fresh, it was brand new. And we thought, okay, it was fun, and we're done. And that night, a guy that was in the crowd said, hey, I got this gig that I'm putting together at the community center in Hunters Point. Now, Hunters Point is South San Francisco, heading towards the airport. You didn't go to Hunters Point back in those days because there was a lot of drive-bys down there, and there was a lot of crack at the time. And so we were like, okay, we'll go. We're like, we're not supposed to go, but we're going to go and do the gig. And then that was the first gig that we did as a official band, but at the time it was Miles and the Ozone, and I didn't like that. Oh, it's MCM and the Ozone, and I was like, I don't know about that name. And finally I was like, MCM, and I was kicking around those M letters, and I finally realized, MCM and the Monster, that seems to work. So it became MCM the Monster. Everybody liked it. Baba was the drummer, by the way.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because he was our roommate too. He lived in that house. Yeah. So Baba was the drummer. I was the rhythm guitar player. Then we had Danny on bass, Gary on the guitar, DJ Paws on scratchers, and then Miles, the rapper singer. And man, that thing took off like wildfire because rap was new and everybody was excited about it. And we had no records out, nothing. It was all just word of mouth. Baba used to work for this hippie mechanic who rebuilt Volkswagen transmissions. And he would get all these cars coming in for repairs, and a lot of times people didn't want to pay the money, or they just felt like it's not worth it. And Baba would end up getting like all these like goofy cars for really low price. And one day he got this '66 Buick Wildcat, it was a big old boat of a car, and then he drove it over to the house. And we're sitting there on the steps, and I'm all like, he was like, yeah, man, we should do something with this car, for the Monster, we should do something with the car. And I said, okay, I got it. So I wrote MCM The Monster on the side of the car with, like the monster letters with the bright green and yellow, with the all monstery looking. And then we chopped off the top. We reupholstered recarpeted with thick shag lime green carpet. Oh my God, we were crazy back then. I took off the front grille and I made these giant fangs and teeth out of like plastic, and oh man, and that thing became the best advertising tool we ever had without realizing that's what we were doing. Wow. We just wanted to have a goofy car for the band, like the Monkey Mobile or the kind of thing like that. And people would come to the shows and go, oh, we came because we saw the car driving down the street, and we're just wondering if we saw the name in the paper, we want to go see what it's about.
Well, that's cool.
Yeah, so that worked out. But with the Monster, we opened up for the Beastie Boys in Cypress Hill. We opened up for Body Count. Wow. We opened up for Ice-T on his first ever record release at the IB. Yeah, we opened up for a lot of bands.
What do you remember about Ice-T?
Well, he was nice, I remember
he's a thrash metal fan. He likes, he did some stuff with Slayer, didn't he?
Oh, did he? Yeah.
I think so,
yeah. But yeah, we were playing at the I-Beam, and we knew about him. His first record on Sire was barely coming out. And then, we met him at sound check and told him we liked his record, and he was really nice, He was cool about playing with us. So I'm looking forward to seeing your band, Like, okay. And then
because of the car.
Yeah, because of the car. And then we used to take all our equipment in the back of that car. We pile everything in, because we took the back seat out and we just had the front bench seat. It's like, oh my God, it's a mess. But yeah. And then there's actually video. If you look in YouTube, there's an MCM The Monster video with the car. We used the car for the video stuff. But
what about the Beastie Boys?
The Beastie Boys, that was actually practically our last gig as a band in the late 80s, 88 it was. And they were playing at the I-Beam again. There was a lot of gigs at the I-Beam that we used to play because it was a really popular spot. And it was Cypress Hill was opening. We were in the middle. Nobody knew who Cypress Hill was at the time. And then the Beastie Boys headlining. And they had their own dressing room and stuff. So I didn't really go bug them, but they were great. I mean, watched them live, you know. It's like, wow. And we got to play with them. It was crazy. You're like, what the hell? This is crazy. But yeah, we also played with the Untouchables, with Fishbone. We played with a lot of great gigs, man. Oh, the biggest one that we did was we opened up, then Joan Jett, then Primus at the Warfield.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that was a crazy bill.
Wow.
Yeah, right.
Did you get a chance to talk to Joan Jett and say, hey, I saw the Runaways back in the day?
Yeah, actually, we ended up taking a picture together. I think Miles probably has a copy of it, because back then we didn't have cameras, you know. I mean, we didn't have phones. We had little cameras, and Miles had a camera. He said, oh, let's take a picture with Joan Jett. I don't have a copy, though, but it's floating around somewhere.
Oh, maybe I'll find it for the interview.
Yeah. But yeah, that was fun.
So when did you get back into the Zeros? That was 91 or?
Around in October '89, I moved to LA for a couple of years and subletted my room in the house I lived in San Francisco. I left because MCM The Monster had been approached by Epic Records and Slash Records and a few other major labels. Wow. And I was like, guys, let's do this. But for some reason, some people in the band, I just couldn't do the math and realize that it was a good thing. And it all came down to management, because we had no manager, and we were getting all these amazing gigs just by word of mouth. And our performance, I mean, we were like a really fun band. I mean, it was a big party every time. Miles knew how to like have fun with the crowd and make it really fun for everybody. And so we got approached by Chris Coyle, who was a business music manager, and at the time he had gotten the Sea Hags a record deal with Chrysalis and got them on a Friday the 13th soundtrack. Mm-hmm. And then he had gotten Jellyfish or Green Jello or somebody like that, a record deal. So the guy had a good resume, and he came to us and said, I want to do business with you guys. Let me manage you. And I thought this would be great, because that's all he did 7 days a week. He wasn't wearing all these hats. That's his thing, and he had connections. But we used to have this woman, Linda Champagne, who was our sort of like unofficial helper. Wasn't exactly a manager, but she took care of bookings and what have you. And she felt threatened by that and said, oh, I don't know, it's like, Chris Coyle, he's a coke addict, and because he had a lawyer, and the lawyer's a coke addict. And I was like, well, what else is new, Linda? I mean, what the hell, man? I was like, what the fuck? And we told her, look, whatever happens, you're coming along. You're going to be like a band member, don't feel that way. But it turns out that her and Baba had been doing other than just business behind closed doors, and that wasn't a good thing, because it just wasn't helping. I didn't want to. And we're like, what is the hell, man? Anyway, so we didn't go with Chris Coyle. I was really pissed, and I thought, man, this is a dumb thing. This is like shooting fish in a barrel, man. Well, come on. And then Bob Biggs from Slash Records wanted to do a record with us. And he flew up from LA and rented a really nice conference room at some fancy hotel, and we met him there. And he said, yeah, I'll drop $50,000 on the first record, And we're like, we should do this. And again, for whatever reason, nobody took the... It was weird. I couldn't believe it. And then we had Tony Isabella, who was working for Bill Graham at the time, and she came to us too and goes, I would be interested in working with you guys. So we go to Bill Graham's offices to have a meeting with her at the conference room, and then we're sitting there, and fucking Bill Graham walks in. And I think she was doing it on his behalf, even though she wasn't saying that, because he walks in all like, oh, I'm looking for this paper. But I'm like, no, man, you're checking us out, motherfucker. Yeah. But anyway, and then that didn't go through. And then we ended up with this guy, Brian Raffi, who was the last guy I would have ever gone with. He was half owner of a club called the DNA. He was a DJ, but he didn't have that type of resume, like whether it was a Bill Graham, Tony Isabella thing or Chris Coyle, we ended up with this guy, and I knew, I said, this isn't going to go anywhere. I can just tell, you know. And then Miles got frustrated, and he's like, I'm going to just do the last gigs that we have on the calendar. And I think we opened up for the Dead Milkmen at the Fillmore. That was our last show. And then I was like, well, if he's leaving, I'm going to leave. Because it was like the Rolling Stones. You can't replace Mick Jagger no matter what. That's what Miles was to the band. He was the guy. If he left, fuck it. It's not going to work. And when he left, I said, I'm leaving too. I'm out of here. And then I moved to LA out of frustration. And I lived there for a couple of years. And then that's when
Javier was there.
And Robert had just started Alvez. It was his first gig. I was the guy running the cassette deck for him.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because he'd been up in San Francisco like a year or two before, told me that he had this idea to do this Mexican Elvis thing. I thought, oh, okay, it sounds kind of crazy, but whatever. And then once I'm down there, you know, he's got it all together, and he goes, yeah, I'm going to play at this club downtown LA, and would you run the cassette deck for me? Because he had all the, you know, karaoke style. He had all the song, background music on cassette.
Yeah.
And he had the two Elvets, you know. And I said, yeah, I'll take care of it, man. And then I'm running the cassette deck, and he's out there doing his thing. And then after that was over, I'm like, he needs a live band. I'm like, he's got to have a live band. So I said, dude, you need to get a live band. And he was like, well, how we put one together? So then we started, you know, asking people around. We asked Baba. He was living in LA.
Did you play?
I ended up being the guitar player, in the beginning, yeah. And so we got some musicians, and we started having a live band, you know. And I was in Alvez, that first incarnation, for almost a year.
Oh.
Yeah, we played all over the place.
And Baba was on drums?
He didn't want to do it.
Oh.
We asked him, and he said he didn't want to do it. So we're like, okay, whatever.
Well, half the Zeros.
Yeah, right? It was crazy. And then I ended up moving back to San Francisco after a couple of years. And then the Monster got back together again.
Wow.
And we did like 3 years, two or 3 years of playing around. But, you know, we were way past our opportunities to, you know, get anything.
Was MCM and the Monster the most successful thing you had been into?
Locally, yes.
At the time?
Locally, yes. You know, we had no records out. We had nothing out, and we pull in 500-600 people at a time. Oh. And we end up opening for all these really great bands, you know, with nothing to show except live performances in a Gracie car. You know? So imagine if we had put out some records. Yeah. But there are recordings out there, because we did go in the studio and did some recordings, but they came out way later. There's 3 CDs out, because basically what happened when we got back together with the Zeros in '90, when Bomb decided to put out all those recordings, Javier called me up. I was still living in LA right before I moved to San Francisco, and he said, hey man, Bomb wants to put this record out, and Zeros, and blah blah blah. Do you want to, you know, get the band back together so we can promote it? And I said, yeah, let's do it, you know. So that's when we got back together, and we played the Kennel Club in San Francisco. We played the Lingerie Room in LA. We played, I think, down here in San Diego. I can't remember where, but we played somewhere down here.
How much did the Muffs covering Beat Your Heart Out do for you guys?
Well, a lot of exposure, yeah. A lot of exposure, man. As a matter of fact, last year when we did 077 up in Sacramento, Ronnie Barnett, the bass player in the Muffs, he recently moved up there. And, you know, he's a friend of mine and stuff. So thinking ahead, I thought, I'm going to get him to play bass on Beat Your Heart Out. So I sent him a message. I said, hey, man, bring your bass to the gig because you're going to play Beat Your Heart Out. I was like, I haven't played in a long time, but okay, I'll do it.
Yeah.
I thought that'll be, like, really cool. And so, yeah, he showed up, and it was time to do the song. And I said, well, go for it, man. I just ran off stage and let him do his thing. It was really fun. It was really cool, because why not? I mean, they played that song a lot back in their day, you know. So
Bomb put out a full-length album, I guess, of the Zeros, and then there was another album out that was like what, demos?
Oh, there was no, and then during that moment where we were promoting that album, we played at the Palace in Hollywood, and that gig came about because Robert, as Alvez, was going to play that gig along with the Go-Go's, and I think the Alley Cats and all these bands from the punk scene that were playing to raise funds to pay off medical bills for Craig Lee, who used to be the guitar player in the Bags, but then he became a music writer for the LA Weekly. And he passed away of AIDS, but he had medical bills. So this concert was getting organized, and then Robert said, hey, if the Zeros want to play, they'll give us a spot. So we're like, yeah, let's do it. So we went up there, and then we played that night. It was right across the street from the Capitol Records building on Vine, I think. And then we're walking across the street to get to our cars, which were parked at the Capitol Records building parking lot. And here comes, oh my God, I can't think of White Flag guy.
Oh, Pat Fear.
Pat Fear, yeah, his stage name. Here comes Pat Fear.
Bill Bartell.
Yeah, Bill Bartell, thank you. And says, guys, I gotta talk to you. It's like, you guys want to put out a 45? I will put out a 45 for you guys, And we're like, what? Okay, he gave us this card, and all right. And then we're like, okay, let's do this, And then Robert says, hey, well, the guy from Sympathy for the Record Industry wants to put out a Zero singles. So I'm all like, well, let's go into the studio and we'll knock off both singles at the same time. So that's what we did. We went to Richard Blitz here in San Diego and recorded 4 songs and gave 2 to Bill Bartell and 2 to Sympathy. And that's how those singles came out. And then Bill was real excited. And my whole intention with Bill was like, I want him to actually want us to put out an album. So if we make this record really great, he'll probably want to make a whole LP. And sure enough, let's make an LP. So then we started recording the Knocking Me Dead album. And then we had people like, I think the McDonald brothers came in and sang some background on some songs. And we had Chip and Tony Kinman come in and do some stuff. And yeah, it was really fun recording sessions. And then Bill put it out on CD, and he goes, oh, by the way, get ready because you guys are probably going to go to Spain because I'm going to license the masters to Monster Records, And I've never been to Europe, man. I was like, okay, that sounds like fun. Who's going to show up at our gigs? I honestly thought. Nobody knew us. 1995, And sure enough, we were booked. We had a tour. Spain for like 2 weeks and Sweden for 1 week.
How'd it go?
Amazing. I honestly thought, I said, well, I'm getting a free plane ticket, and I've never been to Europe, so I'll go see what it's about. I really thought we're going to go play for the bartender, the door guy, and the sound man, everywhere we go. Who's going to know about the Zeros in Spain? And it was exactly the opposite. Everywhere we went, it was just jam-packed with people and big fans. The first place we played was a Zeppelin club in Valencia, and we did the gig. It's totally sold out. We're hanging out in the dressing room right next to the stage, and these people are walking in, not just with Zeros records, but with True Believers records, with Hector solo album, with the Flying Color, with Robert Albaz, and we're like, what the hell?
Wow,
hardcore. That was an eye opener, man. And yeah, that was a really great tour. And then we flew from Madrid to Sweden, and we played with a band called Sator, S-A-T-O-R.
Oh yeah.
Really
they covered Black and White.
Yeah, on the barbecue Killers. Yeah, well, they
do an amazing version.
Yeah, they were really big fans of the California punk scene back in the day, and so they were excited to have us on the tour. And these guys were on Warner Brothers Europe. They were rock stars in Sweden, so we were playing 3,000, 4,000 seaters with these guys everywhere we went. Big venues, and they let us borrow all their equipment. Full on Marshall stacks.
Awesome.
Oh my God, it was crazy. It was really fun, and they were super cool guys. And so that was our first tour of Europe. And then in '96 we went out again, and we did Spain, 5 gigs in France, and then 1 in Germany. And then Bob and I stayed a week over just to be tourists in Paris, because I've never been, I thought, well, in order to really absorb the city, you can't be on tour. You got to be there and not get gigs get in the way,
This might be a little weird question, but The Zeros are obviously legendary. I mean, everyone. I mean, we were in Australia and we're seeing Zeros T-shirts in Australia by Matt playing there, stuff like that. And what you're just saying, being in Spain and stuff like that. When did you think the Zeros were like
a big deal?
A big deal, yeah, or a special or something.
Well, it's hard to say.
Or two separate questions, maybe.
Yeah, no. Back in 2004 or 5. I had a friend, still my friend, Chris Bearden, and one day he says to me, there's this Japanese movie called Wild Zero.
Oh.
Have you heard of it? And I'm like, no. He says, check it out. There's a Zero song in that movie. And I'm like, what? And then I'm like, okay. So that's when the Ken video store was still open. I went down and I got the movie. And I put this thing on and I'm watching it, and then there's a scene where this guy's combing his hair in the bathroom, and then Wild Weekend comes on. And I'm like, what the fuck is this? And then I'm realizing, wait a minute, the title of the movie.
Wild Zero.
No, okay. And like, this is crazy. But, you know, I mean, yeah, we I think we have had a lot of influence, but I've never been able to really gauge it.
Yeah, it seems like you were always on the move, or too young to know.
Yeah, or just like, or like, I mean, if it comes down to one thing, it's like, well, I guess my life wasn't a waste after all. You know, I can leave something behind, you know. And but the crazy thing is, it's still not ending. I mean, there's still stuff going on. I mean, I've always been very active in that way. It's like I always like to do things, you know, and musically too. It's like, and I'm not particular to one style. I mean, you know, I had a Beatles cover band for 20 years.
Yeah.
You know?
Do you want to get into that now, or so you had the Zeros?
Yeah.
You reunited in the 90s.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I think one pivotal moment was when we got the Lifetime Achievement Award from the San Diego Music Foundation.
Really?
Yeah, and I know Mario had a lot to do with that, where he threw in the name in the hat.
But that's when you realized that the Zeros were something?
Yeah, because I realized, you know, that just verifies that we weren't just wasting our time in any way, shape, or manner, you know. But yeah, that definitely was a eye opener. I said, oh wow, that's really nice. I'm glad that.
Were all the Zeros there for that?
Yes, we were all there. Yeah, and then we had Wayne Kramer do the presentation.
Oh wow!
Yeah, we were
San Diego.
Yeah.
Wow.
When Javier was in AA in LA, Wayne Kramer became a sponsor.
Oh.
So that's a connection. Originally, Robert used to know Little Richard, because when Robert lived in LA, Little Richard lived in a hotel off of Sunset, one of the real fancy ones, and Robert worked at the hotel and was always giving him room service and stuff.
Wow.
And made friends with him. Wow. And Robert had said to me, oh, maybe I can get Little Richard to give us. And I thought, my God, I would die happy if it was Little Richard. And then he was busy around that time. And then Javier said, well, you know, I'll ask Wayne Kramer. And then Wayne Kramer said, yeah, of course, I'll come down.
Wow.
So Robert and I had him signed our Lifetime Achievement Awards. And the bottom of the base, it says, it's a living Wayne Kramer.
Wow.
So I have that.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, man. It was a great day.
Oh.
Yeah.
So when you guys are all there for the music awards, are you catching up with one another? Are you saying, oh, hey, or were you already?
At that time, we were already back together as a band and had played some, you know, almost the whole year, because that happened in September of 2009, and we had started at pretty much in January 2009.
Did everyone recognize that as a big deal, or
pretty much? Yeah. And then, you know, we ended up playing a couple of songs with Wayne Kramer at the event.
Wow,
it was really amazing.
Oh, that should be. I should get some videos from that.
There's
I'll try to.
If you look on YouTube, he's
screenshots.
You can find the presentation video where he's presenting and talking about the Zeros and stuff.